All right, Laurie, I'm taking a look now at your report, and I do these by video because it's easier for me since they're a bit longer, more involved papers. And students tend to seem to like it because it's like watching over my shoulder as I evaluate it. So let me know if you want to. Let me know what you think about it. I'm welcome. I'm open to feedback. So let's see. You got your heading up here, which looks just fine. Your page numbering, great. Title looks awesome. Everything looks very good. I actually already read the introduction, and it looks great, very good as well. Your um, your thesis statement is just fine, so everything's looking good so far. You've got your literature review here. I would go ahead and capitalize the R in literature review and review. Um, let's see, agriculture is essentially human existence. Robert Perrin, Robert Pierre in the history. Okay, so history of precision agriculture is a title, and therefore should be, if it's an article or something like that, it should be in quotation marks, right? I won't, you can do that yourself, but it should be in quotation marks. Or if it's an actual like website or something and not part of a whole, if it is the whole, then you would put it in italics. But I'm guessing this is probably like an article or something. But yeah, if it's a book, you would put it in italics. Claims that earlier technologies such as GPS systems. Okay, now this presumably is the end of this source material. And I assume that you got this from a source. So since you're citing something, you have to have a citation, proper citation, which means you have to end it with the parenthetical here. Since you've already named him in the signal phrase, the only thing you would need to put in here then would be like a page number that you found it on, and that would just be the number itself. Or let's say you found it, let's say it didn't have page numbering, so you had to use a paragraph number. You would put PAR period and then the number, paragraph 3, right? Excuse me. So that's how you do the in-text citations. You absolutely have to have a signal phrase like you did here, which was great. And you have to have the signal phrase and you have to have a parenthetical at the end. That way I can tell where your source material starts and stops. And that allows me to easily differentiate between the source material and your own voice around it. Okay? So you need to make sure you do that for all of your citations. Same thing here. It looks like you're talking about a source by somebody named Zhang. And whenever you first introduce them, especially once you're in the literature review and they're providing important information to your argument, to your paper, you need to introduce them by their full name and something that qualifies them. So what you'll need to do to make sure you do all that correctly as you go through the report or the paper, your report, is bring up that video again or the sample, either one. Bring up the sample and put them side by side and let it show you how to do it, or use that video titled Integrating Sources. And that in that video will show you exactly how to do what I'm talking about here. Okay, so you got to make sure you do that for all of your citations. All right, now I'm going to concentrate more on just some of the content here. Okay. Yeah, you don't have none of your citations end with a parenthetical. You got to make sure you fix that. Also, by the way, everything that you fix as you go through here and you fix things like I'm showing you, you got to make sure you put a highlight whatever you fix. Like let's say you needed to change some words here, so you would highlight that, and then you would put new comment, click on new comment, and over here you would put a comment telling me what you did there. In other words, what did you change? What did you add or delete or whatever you did? You got to do that for everything that you fix. Okay, that way it's easy for me to spot all the fixes and know that you did fix it when I look it over again later. Okay. Um, Okay, so that's the main thing I'm seeing right now is you just got to make sure you do your citations correctly. Okay, now here it seems like you're talking about the gap, which is good, but I would really, uh, what really helps me is if you put in bold something to indicate that it's the gap. So you could either change something in here and add the word gap or add the word problem or whatever. This here, even if you just put that in bold, little research That might even be enough to tell me that's the weakness or the gap or the problem. So that would even work, I think, too. But good job that you're actually including that. That's something some students will miss, so that's great. All right, methods section. Okay, you want to talk a little bit in here about, yeah, criteria, the authority, accuracy, verifiability, relevance, um, and you do talk a little bit about that and how your sources fared through it. So that's good. Materials are provided either limited. Good, good. This is all good stuff. Primary research based on observations made by you yourself, the author, right? Will be documented in a separate section. Agricultural based technology should have a hyphen. That's why that's got those blue underlines. Whenever you see something with blue underlines, that tells you, like this up here, it's telling you that it thinks there might be a mistake there. How to maintain a credible narrative. Yeah, that should be just a, not an. Um, when you see these dots here, it's telling you that you could probably reduce the length of it. And yeah, it's saying you could just change it to was. The drawback of this research process was limited access. Yes. So you could probably just take out as a whole if you wanted to and just say was. But that's up to you. You can do whatever you want with that. When it's dots, it's just a suggestion rather than what it perceives as an error, right? Um, and since this is evidently your weakness section that you're discussing, like the weakness of your research, again, put that in bold, that word that indicates it's a problem. Okay, very good though. All right, results. Looks good. Now your results section is missing a graphic. So remember, you have to have a graphic in here, some sort of chart or even an image or something that that logically represents your results and helps to visually show your results. So you got to make sure you include that. And then you also want to make sure that in here you're discussing the primary research as well as the secondary research and how the two work together or not. You know, your secondary observations align with what your research sources were saying, right? Things like that. So you want to discuss about that, talk about that stuff too. Um, so yeah, got to have a graphic in there, and you can look in the Easy Writer. Look for the sample of the MLA paper in Easy Writer. I don't remember off the top of my head what page number it's on. But I think it's maybe 167, maybe somewhere around there. Um, so take a look for that and see how they show you how to do the graphic, integrating the graphic. Because you need to introduce it in the paragraph before the graphic, then you need to have the graphic, and then you need to have a proper citation and information under the graphic. Okay. Um, discussion. This is where you talk about what your results prove or seem to show, not necessarily prove, but seem to show. Like you said here, evidence suggests. So that's a good way to word it. Okay. Again, don't forget to talk in here either in either in the discussion section or in the results section. Well, actually, you're sort of doing that right here, aren't you? Zachariah further supports the findings. Okay, so yeah, you just want to make sure that you compare and talk about how the findings that you gain from your own primary research, how do they work together with or coordinate with the sources and what the sources say. So if that's what you're doing there, that's just fine. That'll be fine. All right, conclusion looks short and sweet. Well, yeah, it's not too bad. Um, it looks like me like you have a two-part conclusion. You really only need one paragraph. You know, this paragraph by itself would almost be long enough to be it, or this one by itself would almost be long enough for that conclusion. It doesn't need to be long because all you're doing is reminding the first sentence, you're reminding your audience of what the problem is. In the second and third sentences, maybe you talk about why they should care about it and why it's important, why we all should care about it, and then end with like an important final statement, like maybe, um, like the statement you have here could probably be a good way to end it. So 5, 6 sentences is really all you need in your conclusion. All right. Your works cited page needs some work as far as formatting is concerned. Remember that you have to center the title or the words works cited. You need to have it all double spaced. You need to have information. You don't want to have this gap up here. So what you would do is just kind of take a look at how much space is there and figure out, okay, about how much of this would fill the space. And I usually go a little further just to be sure. And then I put the cursor in there and hit spacebar. If it doesn't work, you back up again and you try a little further to the left. And you just keep doing that until it moves up. Now, in your case, it's not moving up. And the reason for that is you might have done some work in here as far as like spacing and stuff. And anytime if you don't like just type it and then hit, so what normally you have to do is, what you'll probably have to do to fix this, well, let me see, maybe you could, no, it's not going to work. You're probably going to have to retype this, like right below it or above it. And then as soon as you're done typing the whole thing out, then you automatically want to hit the Control T and see how that fixes that. But before that, you would also want to make sure you get some of this up here. And what it might entail is just happen to take this much here and just cut it and paste it up there. So let's see what that does. I'll just paste it up here. No. There it goes. Okay. So yeah, you just have to work with it. You're just going to have to work with it. Try to get that to be even with the right margin as much as possible. Now, if you can't get that to work, if you try it and you can't get it to work, don't fret about it. That's not going to affect your grade that much at all. I mean, it's not like I'm going to reduce your grade to a B just because you didn't have that. Obviously, that would be silly. Just do the best you can to try to fix that. But you definitely need to. More important part is having it hang indented. And like I said, all you got to do is hit the Control and the letter T at the same time, and it'll do that for you. Now, if it does what it just did there, then again, you got to work with this to get it up here. All right. So that will be it, Lauri. Just make sure what's really, really important, like I said, is to highlight everything and annotate it so I know what you fixed all the way through the paper. And that will do it for this video. If you have any questions or you need any help, let me know.